And I will be your guide through the next 45 minutes of this session on gender and climate. To begin with, I represent an organization called the Climate Heritage Network. This is an international support network of government agencies, NGOs, universities, businesses, and various other organizations that work together to bring the power of arts, culture, and heritage to climate action. I am a heritage conservation architect by profession, and I run my small studio in India in a town called Bangalore. I co-run it with my partner Rosie Paul. Before I start off, I would first like to share my heartfelt gratitude to Rosie Paul, who for personal reasons couldn't be with us today. She is the brains behind this entire event. She has spent about 6 months curating this, and I hope we can do it justice, and I hope you can all take back something relevant for each and every one here today. So the theme for today is intangible and tangible intersections between culture, climate, and gender. Let's begin with the first term, culture. What is the perception of culture for us today? What does culture mean to us? And very honestly, what can culture achieve? A lot of people believe that culture and climate are two mutually exclusive disciplines, and I strongly believe that's not the case. Climate change is impacting all of us universally, but let's face it, climate change has a disproportionate impact on marginalized communities, especially women and children, and that's what we are here to discuss today. This disproportionality is because they have different social responsibilities, they have different vulnerabilities, and different capabilities and opportunities as compared to the male gender. So through this session, what we hope to achieve is to see how culture can truly be used as a tool to fight climate change. We have 4 lovely stories to be shared today, and just to get you all oriented, there's 2 of us here today. Lydia, I will be going into her introduction in detail a bit later. We have 2 people joining us, not virtually but through video, so we have some lovely videos coming up, and Rosie has envisioned this based on the proverb that an image speaks 1,000 words. So we will be communicating to you through the lens of a camera and hoping to ignite some interesting conversations towards the end. So the first 2 panelists, Jude Kelly and Priya, will be joining us via video, which is pre-recorded. We have a set of pre-recorded question and answers as well. I would encourage you to come to me and send your questions in case you have any for them, and they will be more than happy to answer them via email. Lydia and myself are here today, and we can answer all the questions that you might have. So let's get started. So our first panelist is Jude Kelly. She is a British theatre director, producer. She is the CEO of the Women of the World Foundation. This is an independent charity dedicated to celebrate the achievements of women and girls and confront global gender injustice. She has directed over 200 theatre and opera productions and is the recipient of a large number of awards. So with not much further ado, let's go right into the videos. Video 1, please. Could we have the volume as well? Audio as well, please, and start from the beginning.
optimism creates determination and energy, and that makes you feel that anything's possible.
Meeting all these fabulous women, all amazing at what they do, top of their games. It's a great event to celebrate women. There's so diverse, so there's so much going on.
The great thing about the Life Festival is you can from all walks of life come in here, and there's a really great vibe.
Very welcoming to men as well.
It's for anybody who is thinking about the amazing world we would have if gender equality could come about.
Raise that awareness, help people understand that women do make a lot of contribution than we know.
Now today is our first big day for Women World Festival.
All around our festival, you'll hear music, you'll hear stand-up poetry, but you can also take part in lots of things, sport, and try abseiling. We have the British women weightlifters giving a display. You can roam around the marketplace and look for things to buy and organisations that you might want to join.
We're here to represent our organisation. We essentially give a platform for young women to discuss gender issues in Scotland.
We have speed mentoring. We have lots of panels that are interactive with the audience, talking about particular themes.
All this talk about women is because they have been oppressed because they are women. What if we try reversing that just to kind of make somebody unwilling to see?
We just got that from the food and feminism talk, which I thought was really interesting. That kind of like link between domesticity and women.
This morning I've just chaired an event including some of Sister Sledge.
My sister and I are so honored that we were asked to be a part of this amazing Women of the World.
Thinkings with other women and boys and men together.
I was doing it in conversation with Baroness Doreen Lawrence and Jude Kelly.
This is the real secret of why we do laugh a lot. Women, never put your tights in the washing machine. It will shatter the micro. Simply, when you're washing your hair in the shower, just wash them there with shampoo and leave them over the radiator to dry. You're welcome.
We've had amazing artists performing WOW. Angelique Kidjo, Anne Lennox, Sinead O'Connor. We've also had amazing world speakers, Malala, Christine Lagarde. That idea of a festival allows all ages, all backgrounds, all experiences to be reflected there.
Being able to come into a room and see all the different views that women have.
WOW festivals have a pattern in them, and that's why they're scalable and transferable, and that's why they're happening all over the world.
I have one word, wow. So I hope this video is as inspiring to you all as it is to me. I think the key word here is celebration, and that's what Jude Kelly has been able to harness through her WOW Foundation. Now we'll move on to the video 1A, where we have some Q&A. Again, as I said, you can note down your questions for Jude Kelly, and we will be more than happy to email them back to you.
Felt that girls, women, non-binary people had done some amazing things throughout the whole of history, despite all the obstacles. And yet, the world still hasn't allowed girls and women to release their full potential. But I didn't feel as if that conversation was easy to have with the majority of people, unless it was had in a spirit of adventure, of fun, of enjoyment, of pleasure. Because, you know, in my experience in the arts, people don't respond well to lectures. They don't want to read academic papers. I mean, obviously academics do, but most of us don't. And it really is about experience and sharing stories, creating empathy, creating understanding, and getting us all to understand the breadth of the issues of injustice. And things have really changed, not just because of WOW, but because of, we have a much better sense of the language of change now. We feel more confident about commanding it. We feel more have greater solidarity, I think, between people. And we are more honest as well about where power lies, including the injustices around race, around disability, around sexuality. And we have to understand that. As much as we want to resist somebody stopping us doing things, we also have to make sure that we're not an obstacle ourselves. So it's a joyful, interesting, demanding, courageous conversation that we're trying to have all the time. Well, obviously, it's too new, the realisation that climate change is having a devastating effect on so many parts of the world, and we've just seen the horrific floods in Pakistan. So this is top of mind for many communities. It is our belief in WOW that you need to combine the conversation about gender equality with the conversation about sustaining the earth in a more suitable and helpful manner. Many of the communities who are really being bereft by climate emergencies are women, the children, the communities that the women and children are living in, and that they are holding together. Women's leadership around climate change is gradually coming to the fore, but like most areas of the modern world, even though the subject matter can seem very much about human progress, almost always the leadership is locked up inside male habits, inside male conversations, inside male assumptions that they will be in charge and they will take the lead. And if we've got to where we've got to because of mainly male leadership, then I don't believe we can get out of where we've got to by maintaining that too. And so in Karachi, really the conversations were about the need for women to recognise not just that they have a right to be around those tables, but that they could make a fundamental difference because of our relationship to power. We're much more consensual, we're much more interested in distributing power, we're much more attuned to the idea that growth needs to be about community health and well-being, that the growth agenda can actually be totally in conflict with the idea of a healthy family and a healthy community. And so we have a lot of things to offer in terms of a value perspective that women hold, but which is often thought of as soft as opposed to hard. We need to bring women's value systems into the climate change discussions. We really do. Then, on resilience is such an important topic because for many, many reasons, women are marginalised, and sometimes with violence, sometimes just through habitual humiliation, sometimes through having their talent unrecognised, sometimes being wiped out of history, and to keep coming back over and over again to say, no, we do need to be here, we insist on being here, we have a role to play, we want to take charge. That requires a sort of emotional stamina that can be hard. So there's this kind of resilience that you need to build around activism. And then, of course, there's the frontline resilience of communities who have yet again been flooded, or yet again had a drought, or yet again thinking, I'm not sure how I'm going to feed my family. And that's a really, really tough kind of resilience. And I think that we need to recognise that we're asking too many people to have that kind of almost bare-knuckle resilience. And those of us who aren't on those frontline territories, not immediately suffering, we need to gather around and put our commitment to them rather than waiting for the emergency to kind of arrive at our own doorstep. So we are relying at the moment on resilience from other people to keep everything going so that we can kind of keep up our blinkers on. And we mustn't do that. The greatest energy comes from the accidental activist. I just take Greta or Malala, since they are so prominent as characters. It's hard to know whether if she hadn't been shot, whether Malala would have championed change and become such a symbol of change in the way that she has. But something about being under attack or loss makes people suddenly go, I'm not going to put up with that any longer. I've literally just been on the phone to somebody who lost 2 of her 3 daughters in a savage attack against women at night. And it's a desperate loss for her. But of course, what it's done is it's turned her into a campaigner for women's safety. and she will be a force, a huge force for change. And in the main, when you hear people's stories of why they become activists, you realise that they're people just like us. Something's happened to them, they realise something, the scales have fallen from their eyes, and they go, I will do something. And it's that really that I think is the most powerful thing. Our ability to call on all of the ordinariness of us all and say that ordinariness is what connects us, and that ordinariness is also what can make us step out into the light for whatever time is needed and make change happen. Well, we have a WOW presence in 20 countries, and we also within countries sometimes have a number of WOWs, because WOWs can work in a small town, like Catherine in the northwest province of Australia, where the First Nations women there put on a WOW over several years in order to explain their culture and their customs and make more connections with the white settler women who were living in the same vicinity with no relationships. Believe it or not, we have done a festival in Brazil and a festival in the UK around people feeling able to discuss the massive epidemic around sexual harm. So we sometimes choose particular subject matters as well as countries. And then we're just in discussions with about another 10 countries at the moment. So, and there are also really tough things that need to be changed. And somehow, as long as communities sort of want those conversations, then it's easy to build a WOW festival with them.
Some very strong messages, I think, to take back from that. Some things that stuck were the importance of inclusion of women's voices in climate change. I loved the term accidental activist and kind of harnessing the ordinariness in you and me to create bigger change. And also the strength of community and the power that lies within us. Moving on, we have the next panelist, Priya Togurishiri. She is an independent documentary filmmaker and TV producer based out of New Delhi in India. Priya's body of work has focused on women, gender, and her stories are a window into a myriad of experiences of the body, the environment, and the community, mapped from the lens of gender and feminist perspectives. Let's have a look. Video 2.
Somebody saw this painting and told me, have you taken a closer look at the coral? So I thought it's high time. I dived and found these corals myself. Looks so blue and beautiful outside. Go underwater, it is like a desert.
2016, we lost about 16.2% of corals in Gulf of Mannar. I don't know how long it will take for Gulf of Mannar to recover back. If there is another bleaching, we will lose more.
வெளிநாடுகளில் இருந்தெல்லாம் முத்து வாங்குறதுக்கு இங்கே வருவாங்க எங்கள் டாடி காலத்தில். ஆனால் 10 அடி 5 அடி 4 அடி உயரத்தில் பவளப்பாறை இருக்கும். இப்போ அந்த சுத்தியில் இல்லை, அந்த பாறைகளும் இல்லை, எப்படியோ அழிஞ்சு போச்சு.
நீங்க ஊத்திட்டு வந்த பழைய துணியை கடல்ல குளிச்சுட்டு
introduced in Gulf of Mannar as a part of a livelihood program. This is the Kappa Bikers covered coral colony. So within 30-40 days, the entire colony is now dead.
The police have had to open fire into the coral in Tamil Nadu. This event as thousands of residents were protesting against the Sterlite copper plant.
Climate change is not what we can control locally. It needs global attention and global initiatives. Whatever the mistakes the whole world is doing, we are facing the consequences.
Those were some really interesting visuals, something that started with beauty and ended with a message. I think here what we can see is the combination of both art and filmmaking as a tool to send across a message. Let's hear it from the horse's mouth. We have some Q&A sessions with Priya. 2A, please.
Hi everybody, thank you for having me. My journey started back from South India, which is Kerala. My first love was definitely fiction, but soon I was introduced to the world of non-fiction because I really love to travel, experience real stories, and then once experienced, there is always an urge to share it with the world. And that journey has been happening. Always the films generally happens when you hear about something or you read about something and a question remains, why is it like this? So it is always that question that leads to a story and then you go behind it. And it just happened that my first film itself was on virginity, questioning the patriarchy, gender and other systems around us, in our culture, in our society. The second film, it just happened that I fell in love with women salt farmers, their stories, and for a comfort production, I decided to have a full women crew. But soon, more you got exposed to what is happening on the ground, the gender disparity, the problems which is there, your lens, your feminist lens gets sharpened. You start seeing things that this is not fair, this is not right. So from a very natural discovery of topics and team, now it became more conscious decision to say that okay, if I have a choice, I will have a full women crew, or I will have maximum technicians who are women who will be part of my project. I fell in love with the story of Coral Woman, Uma Mani. I thought I was going to make a happy, beautiful film of someone who got inspired by coral reefs and started painting and diving. I was really looking forward for this happy story, but it also turned out that the things are not that beautiful underwater. And where Uma was located, which is from Tamil Nadu, which is south of India, and there is a marine national park, which is one of the earliest marine national parks in India, Gulf of Mannar. And what I discovered in that small little area itself was so heartbreaking, I would say. As a storyteller, as someone, I also feel responsible for what is happening. I believe in the art I do. I believe in the power of the medium I work. So I find that as a tool to take the message or have conversations using my medium, that is cinema, to have conversations around it. I think the journey of Coral Woman itself shows, what had happened, because Uma, my main protagonist, she is a woman in her 50s, coming from a very traditional background. She happened to see a documentary on coral reefs, and that inspired her to get into this deep diving and painting and start having these conversations around marine conservation and coral protection. And her story inspired me as a filmmaker to make a film on her and Gulf of Mannar. And I'm sure that the chain continues, that movie, our movie is actually now seen by more than hundreds of festivals it had traveled, colleges are screening. The first screening itself, we understood that people know very little about the issue. I purposefully decided that I would screen a film in the same coast where the film was shot. And the experience was people hardly knew that they had such a rich coral coast. So from that to a screening in Bombay where it was full children, it was more than 300, 400 children. And when elder people empathize and say that, oh, this is really sad, children were like, can I do something from my house to stop this? Can I reverse it? It was more impact-driven questions. That really made us feel that, the film can be used as a medium to have these kind of conversations. Then we don't have to do everything. There is there is already a lot of groups who are working in different pockets. We can just join that dots and make things happen. I will just add one more point. It's very important to have, when it comes to issues like this, I don't know how successful a top-down model will work. It should be a bottom-up also, because a lot of impact or problems are affected by people on the ground. And when they also be part of solution making, and they take charge of the situation. And if we empower them to take charge of that situation, that will make a huge difference. I can speak about my work in the Central India, which is a drought-prone area, especially in Bundelkhand area, which is having a lot of water issues. And when it comes to water, it's always women who are impacted, because it's a cultural norm and it's considered as normal that when the water is not there, it's the women and the girls who have to walk kilometers and bring water. It's never a man's issue, or a hand pump not working. It will remain unrepaired till the man feels that, okay, I need to get it repaired, because he had the skills, because it's a very laborious charge. So he'll be busy in playing his cards, or busy with some other thing. And this issue which a woman directly faces is considered less important. So there was a feminist movement which happened, and where rural women were trained as hand pump mechanic, because that is a problem. The water was a very big problem which is very close to them. And when they became the solution makers, when they started repairing the hand pump, so that got a lot of empowerment. And it's not just gender. When it comes to climate, we forget that especially in Indian context, there is a caste angle also. Because when the drought happened and the well is not having water, or the hand pump is not giving you water, then the water tanks comes. And water tanks come to an upper caste man's house. And the untouchability is still a reality. When farmers are getting impacted by climate change, and there is a lot of suicide which is happening, and we forget that a majority of farmers in India are women. So who gets the most impacted are women, are definitely women from marginalized communities. And there are definitely policies and other interventions which is to support these communities. For example, there is flood relief funds which are there. But our experience, my personal experience, when I met women, for example in Bihar, they said that there are flood relief funds which are available, but they are not even aware of it, because a man from the urban city will come and say that, okay, I have 100 people can get this policy or get this relief fund. He directly goes to a village, and mostly the panchayat head will be a man, upper caste man. He'll distribute it to 100 people he knew. It never reaches the real farmers, which are mostly women, and that too from marginalized communities.
So to elevate the voices of underrepresented women, let's just see more about it through the video, and then we can move on to your discussions. Thank you. With the next video.
Meaningful
meaningful participation by women who are on the front lines of climate change is essential for gender-responsive, locally led adaptation. National Adaptation Plan processes, or NAP processes, are a key opportunity to facilitate dialogue between adaptation decision makers and the people most affected by the impacts of the changing climate. Over the last several months, the social enterprise Lensational and the NAP Global Network have been working with groups of women in Ghana and Kenya to explore how visual storytelling can be used as a tool for policy advocacy. Equipped with training in storytelling and photography, the participants developed visual stories that capture their experiences with climate change and their visions of resilience. Now, in collaboration with the Environmental Protection Agency in Ghana and the Climate Change Directorate in Kenya, we are bringing their stories to adaptation decision makers in a process of dialogue and shared learning. Women in Tamale, Accra, and Ada have differing experiences with climate change. Their stories explore coastal erosion, extreme weather, displacement, and the need for collective action.
The story to a picture can actually say so much. Bringing aboard young women to use photographs to depict adaptation will go a long way to enhance Ghana's adaptation program.
Soon, their stories will be shared with adaptation stakeholders, including government, civil society actors, international organizations, and the media. In Kenya, the stories of Maasai women from the southwest of the country provided adaptation actors with a new perspective on climate change impacts in their communities. Government decision makers and other stakeholders had the opportunity to interact with the newly trained photojournalists to learn from their experiences.
This lady is known as, she's my aunt. She's one of the residents that practices public as one of the things of living. And in this photo, she's trying to take her wind shamba. As you can see, her wind shamba has been affected by extreme drought, but she goes ahead to take it because it's the only hope that she has.
Their visual stories display the ways in which climate change affects access to water, housing, and food security, and importantly, how these impact the lives of women and the communities they support.
Why is it as a policymaker? I'm seeing this directly towards the grassroots, where the people on the grassroots can feel capture the situation and share with the audience.
We work on all this heritage. Trees, drought, house ties, lack of water, falling of trees, fellings of trees, and many issues of drought. From the project, I am now aware what we have experienced for many years is limited.
This pilot initiative demonstrates the power of visual storytelling to bring different stakeholders together, building a shared understanding of climate change issues and priorities for adaptation. Incorporating this type of approach in national adaptation plan processes can facilitate meaningful participation by people whose voices are often excluded from decision making. This will help to ensure that adaptation action is gender responsive and locally led, increasing resilience for people of all genders and social groups.
Lydia, since you're with us, I would love you to summarize and tell us maybe just a few things about Lensational and yourself.
Right. Thank you so much, Shri. Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Lydia Kibandi, and I am based in Kenya. I'm gonna start with how my journey into the photography space started. When I was just beginning to be a young woman, I realized that I was severely insecure due to different issues that had happened to me as I was growing up. But I had a passion for storytelling and fashion, and I wanted to tell those stories but without showing my face. So I was wondering what's the best way to do that, and I realized that I could do that through photography. And so I set out to kind of learn how to take photographs and to tell stories of myself without me in the picture about fashion and the psychology of fashion, especially in women. And the more that I went into it, I realized that it's an empowering tool for me. And while I was seeking for a career in the same path, I learned about sensational. This is about 9 years ago. And I learned about sensational, which at the time described ourselves as an organization that empowers women through photography. And so I joined the organization as a volunteer. And I learned about the work that Sensational at the moment was doing in Africa. Well, no, it hadn't come to Africa, but it was working in Asia and Southeast Asia. And I wanted to start the project here in Kenya and in other countries in Africa. And so, long story short, I set out to communities indigenous communities in Kenya, where we started to train them, and I really saw how they came alive as women who don't speak my language, women who have kind of been left out because of the way the culture is there. They did not have any sense of urgency. They often spoke with their hands on their mouths, and it reminded me of a younger me who was the same way, insecure and shy. But now they speak up with their heads high, as you've seen. They were talking with policymakers. And that's just a little tiny bit of what the power of photography is.
That is such a heartwarming story, Lydia. To see you here today, I don't think anyone would imagine an insecure Lydia. We can't even imagine that. And I love the power that you have given those women through the camera. That's amazing. So let's continue the conversations after our last video that we have, and then we can open it up to the panel. So the last video is very close to my heart. It is from my studio, Masons Inc. And it talks about women in construction. I won't take any more of your time. Let's go to the video, please.
Building my own house with a team of women and one from the land, and that's why I'm here.
And the site architect and contractor work with all women mud construction of this modern house.
ಮನೆಯಾಗ ಆದ್ರೆ ಅವಾಗೆಲ್ಲ ಮನೆ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದು ಆದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮಣ್ಣು ಕಳಿಸಿ ಮಣ್ಣು ಇಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರಿ. சேஞ்ச் இருக்கணும்ல, பய லெவல் வந்துருக்குதಲ್ಲ, ஃபுல் லெவல் வந்துருக்குதಲ್ಲ மேடம். என்னன்னா
do have an all-women's team, and I can see what it means to be a woman builder or a woman mason. It is challenging. It is no doubt challenging.
That brings us to the end of all the videos. So I'd just like to say that this example is an intersection of what you call the intangible gender and using culture, the intangible knowledge of the past, to create a better, more sensitive architecture in the world. So having said that, I think we do have some time for interactions. Do you have any questions?
Yes, sir. So, I mean, you mentioned earlier about the climate heritage, the culture heritage network. And first of all, I'm curious, how do you use art? How do you use art to drive climate action? And for anybody who might be in the audience, who might be interested in joining the network, how do they go about that?
Thank you for that question. So the network is called the Climate Heritage Network. So there's climate and there's heritage in the form of culture, and it's a network, it's an international network, so any organization who are aligned to these beliefs that you saw here today can join. I can share the links with you, and it's a very simple process of filling out a form. And there are multiple streams within the network that you can kind of park yourself under. So I would definitely encourage anyone here to join it. It's a bunch of lovely people working towards a very important common goal. So yeah, and you'd also asked about how art informs climate change, and I think this is a good example. So. Right now, building construction is not seen as an art. It's seen more as a business transaction. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of the art that's part of construction. So the secret is to try to revive that art and hence create more sensible buildings at the end of the day. I have a question for you regarding what, according to you, is feminism, and how do you relate to that? As somebody from the global side?
Great question. I believe feminism is making more spaces and making more room, especially for women, but especially for women who would otherwise not have the privilege that I have had, where I had parents who sent me to school, where my culture made it easy for that to happen. Those women who culture, location, geography, language, kind of, there are so many odds against them, just making room for them. And getting them to where I am. And that's, you know, what we want to work towards as Sensational. Maybe what I did not mention is that we do not, as Sensational, we do not take the photographs. We give the skills and the tools for photography storytelling into the hands of those women who cannot speak my language, the amazing women that you saw here. And they show us their lives through those photo stories. And my dream for the organization and for the movement really is that we can have them coming into forums like this, that when I'm somewhere else speaking, they are here speaking with you. And yeah, that's feminism for me. It's more spaces for more women of all color, of all background, of any diversity. Yeah, that's what I would say. That's it. But I have a follow-up question for you. So tell us about Masons Inc. Studio, your role there, and your journey into the amazing work that you're doing now.
Sure. Just 5 minutes, we'll wrap up. We're almost over. Yeah. So I'll just quickly answer that. So Masons Inc. is a studio based out of Bangalore in India. And we do focus on heritage social architecture and a lot of research and development that goes into vernacular architecture. And my role is on the heritage aspects and the heritage verticals. So that would be the short answer. Could I just get a couple of questions, maybe just one question from the audience, if anybody has it, or since we're short on time, we can definitely take this offline. Again, thank you all so much for being a part of this discussion. There's just one question, I think.
My question, Lydia, is as a filmmaker, how has the process of making film transformed you as an activist, and in particular your relationship to the environment and our being here with COP27, wanting to hear about your transformation as an environmental activist through filmmaking?
I'll be quick. It's changed me in so many ways, to be honest, but I think one of the biggest imprints that it's left on me is empathy. And I'm gonna give you an example. I live in Nairobi City, but because of the drought that's taking place in Kenya in neighboring regions, there is livestock now on the roads of Nairobi. And whenever I'm with somebody who hasn't been through my journey, they always are like, these things, they're causing traffic. And I feel really, really sad because I have more, I'm more informed through the experience that I have with the women that I work with, and also just as a photojournalist myself. And I think it's an ever-evolving journey. I had somebody who said they asked their daughter, what should I say at COP27? And they said, and the daughter said, we want clean oceans and we want to swim, but we also want the bears to be safe. So, and he spoke about empathy, and I think that everywhere that I've gone, a lot of one imprint that never leaves us the same is empathy. And I hope that this COP is going to be the same for us and for the leaders. That's what I can say.
Thank you all so much. Any further discussions, I'll be happy to take it offline. Thank you.